The CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, Ethan Cole, stood under 1,000 white roses, ready to marry Lila Hart, the elegant sister of his ex-love. Cameras flashed, guests whispered, and the media called it the billionaire wedding of the year. But just as Ethan took Lila's hand, a trembling voice echoed from the crowd. Everyone turned. A fragile woman in a faded dress stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. Her face looked pale, but hauntingly familiar. The music stopped. The priest froze. Even Ethan's confident smile faded. Then came the words that shattered the moment, soft but powerful enough to silence the room. "You said you'd love me forever. So why are you marrying my sister?" Gasps filled the hall. Lila dropped her bouquet. Ethan's world stopped because that voice belonged to the woman he thought was gone forever, and that was just the beginning. Ethan Cole wasn't just another rich man. He was the man every magazine wrote about. At 34, he was the CEO of Cole Technologies, one of America's fastest-growing tech empires. His net worth was in the billions, his name stood for success, and his mansion overlooking Malibu was proof that he had everything a man could dream of. But behind that perfect smile, Ethan was lonely. Every night he sat on his rooftop balcony, watching the Pacific waves crash against the rocks, the sound reminding him of the only woman who ever made him feel human, Amelia Hart. 3 years ago, Amelia disappeared without a trace. No goodbye, no reason. Just a single letter on his desk. "Don't look for me. Please." He searched everywhere, hospitals, shelters, cities. But she was gone. And no matter how much money he had, he couldn't buy peace. Then, one evening, fate brought him face to face with Lila Hart, Amelia's younger sister. It was at a charity gala in Los Angeles. Gold lights, champagne, soft jazz. She walked in wearing a simple silver dress, nothing fancy, but her eyes caught his attention instantly. They were the same deep brown as Amelia's, kind, soulful, and full of secrets. They talked awkwardly at first, then comfortably. Lila was nothing like the women who usually circled Ethan's world. She spoke about books, street art, and her dreams of starting a school for underprivileged kids. When she smiled, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in years. Warmth. Weeks turned into months. Their connection grew fast, and for the first time in a long while, Ethan believed he could move on. His friends called it destiny. The media called it the millionaire's comeback story. Yet late at night, when Lila would talk about her family, Ethan noticed the shadow that passed through her face whenever Amelia's name came up. She never said much about her sister, just, "She's not around anymore." Ethan didn't press. Maybe she didn't want to reopen old wounds, and maybe he didn't either. Still, there were signs, quiet ones that didn't make sense. A necklace Lila wore that once belonged to Amelia. A song she hummed, the same one Amelia used to sing while cooking breakfast. And once, when he called her by name, Lila whispered Amelia under her breath before quickly correcting herself. Ethan brushed it off. Love, after all, was supposed to heal the past. As their wedding day approached, the mansion buzzed with life again. Lila wanted a small ceremony, but Ethan insisted on something grand, a celebration of a new beginning. Reporters swarmed the gates. Guests arrived in limousines. The air was thick with excitement, but the night before the wedding, Ethan couldn't sleep. He wandered into his study, looking through old files, maybe trying to quiet the voice in his head. That's when he found it, a small, worn-out photograph tucked between 2 business reports. It was Amelia. Standing beside her was a little boy, maybe 5 years old. His eyes looked familiar. Too familiar, Ethan froze. His hands shook as he turned the photo over. On the back, written in faint ink, were 5 words. "For Ethan, when he's ready." His heart raced. What did it mean? Who was the boy? Outside, the ocean wind howled, rattling the windows as if the night itself carried a warning. Ethan clenched the photo, his mind spinning with questions. And for the first time in years, he was afraid of the truth, because deep down he knew the past wasn't done with him yet. Ethan couldn't sleep that night. The photo of Amelia and the little boy burned in his hand like a secret he wasn't supposed to see. He sat at his desk staring at her face, the same gentle eyes, the same soft smile. But the boy beside her, those eyes looked like his own. Morning came, but the storm inside him didn't fade. He told himself he was imagining things. Maybe the picture was old. Maybe it was just Amelia's nephew. Anything to calm his racing thoughts, but the truth didn't rest. At breakfast, he watched Lila across the table. She looked beautiful, calm, sipping her coffee and going through wedding details with the planner. Yet when Ethan mentioned Amelia's name, her hands trembled slightly. Her spoon clinked against the cup. "Lila," Ethan said softly, "do you still think about her?" Lila froze, then smiled quickly, too quickly. "Of course. She was my sister." Her voice cracked on the word was Ethan leaned closer. "There's something I found. A photo of her with a little boy." Lila's eyes widened for a moment before she blinked and looked away. "Old pictures mean nothing, Ethan. Let's not talk about the past today. Tomorrow's our wedding." But her tone wasn't firm. It was pleading. Ethan wanted to believe her, to bury the questions. But that night, as he walked past her room, he heard her crying. Not soft tears, broken sobs muffled into a pillow. The next day, he followed her. Lila told him she was going to meet the florist. Instead, she drove across town, far from the luxury of Malibu, to a small, quiet neighborhood near Glendale. Ethan parked a block away and watched as she entered an old, paint-chipped house. Minutes later, she came out, holding the hand of a little boy. Ethan's breath caught. It was the same boy from the photograph. He watched as Lila knelt and kissed the boy's forehead. The child laughed, the same laugh Amelia had, the same dimple, the same spark. Ethan felt his heart twist. She placed the boy into a car driven by an elderly woman and hugged him tightly before stepping back. The boy waved out the window. "Bye, Aunt Lila." Everyone froze. That word, Aunt Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his pulse pounding. When Lila returned home, he was waiting for her in the study. The photo sat on the table. "Who is he?" he asked quietly. Lila didn't answer. She just stared at the floor. "Lila," Ethan's voice broke slightly. "Who is the boy in that picture?" "The one who calls you Aunt." Finally she looked up. Her eyes were red, filled with tears she could no longer hold back. "You shouldn't have followed me. Tell me the truth," he said, his voice trembling now. "Is he mine?" Lila turned away. "Ethan, you have no idea what you're asking. Then help me understand." Silence. The air between them grew heavy, filled with memories, fear, and a truth just on the edge of breaking free. Finally, she whispered, "Amelia made me promise never to tell you." Ethan's breath hitched. "Tell me what?" Lila looked at him, her voice barely audible. "Because if you knew, you'd never forgive her." And before Ethan could speak again, she ran out of the room, leaving him standing in the quiet mansion, the photo trembling in his hand, his heart torn between love and betrayal. Outside, thunder rumbled across the Los Angeles sky, as if warning him that the storm had only just begun. The past was no longer knocking. It had walked right through the door. Ethan didn't see Lila for 2 days after that night. Her phone went straight to voicemail, and her room stayed locked. The mansion felt colder, emptier. Every tick of the clock sounded like a countdown to something terrible. When she finally came downstairs, her eyes were swollen, her voice quiet. She walked past Ethan as if he wasn't there, until he said, "Lila, we can't keep pretending." She stopped but didn't turn around. "You want the truth, Ethan?" "It's not as simple as you think," he stood. "Then make me understand." Lila took a deep breath. "Amelia didn't leave because she stopped loving you. She left because she was dying." Ethan froze. "What?" "She found out she was sick, heart failure. The doctors said she might not survive the year. She didn't want you to watch her fade away. She said you deserved to keep living, not waiting for someone who was counting days." Ethan's knees felt weak. He sat down slowly, his mind reeling. The woman he loved didn't abandon him out of cruelty. She left to protect him. But then his voice cracked with pain. "And the boy, Lila, is he?" Lila's lips trembled. "Yes, he's yours." The world tilted. Ethan pressed his hands to his face. Every sleepless night, every unanswered question, it all came crashing down. His son, his flesh and blood, out there living a life he never knew existed. Where is he now? Ethan demanded, his voice trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. Lila hesitated. He's with Amelia. She's alive, Ethan. Barely, but alive. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. Alive? Lila nodded. She's been hiding in San Diego. I visit when I can. She made me promise not to tell you. She didn't want your pity, only your peace. He stood furious and broken. Peace. She took my peace the day she walked out that door. Lila flinched, tears rolling down her cheeks. She did it out of kindness, Ethan, out of love. You were building your empire. She didn't want to destroy it. He turned away, pacing, his voice cracking. All these years I thought I wasn't enough for her. I thought she stopped loving me. Lila's voice softened. She never stopped. She talks about you every day. And Noah, your son, he looks up to you, even though he's never met you. Ethan pressed a trembling hand against the window, staring out at the crashing waves. I need to see them. Lila shook her head. If you do, she'll know I broke my promise. Please, Ethan, don't go. Not now, she's too weak. The shock could... He turned sharply. I've already lost her once. I'm not losing her again. Before Lila could stop him, he grabbed his car keys and walked out. The sound of the engine roared through the stillness of the mansion. Lila collapsed to her knees, whispering through her tears, Amelia, forgive me. He's coming. Hours later, the scene shifted to a quiet coastal clinic in San Diego. The night air was thick with the scent of rain. Inside a dimly lit room, a nurse adjusted the blanket over a pale woman sleeping peacefully. Her hand rested beside a small photograph. Ethan, smiling, his arm around her. Beside it, a child's drawing of a family, a mom, dad, and a little boy holding hands under the sun. The nurse whispered, Miss Hart, someone's here to see you. The woman stirred weakly, her eyelids fluttering. Who? Before the nurse could answer, headlights flashed through the window. Tires screeched outside. The nurse looked toward the door just as it opened slowly, and Ethan stepped inside, drenched from the rain, holding the photo he'd found days earlier. Amelia's eyes opened. For a long second, neither spoke. Then she whispered, voice trembling with disbelief, Ethan, you weren't supposed to find me. And just as their eyes met, the heart monitor beside her let out a sharp, warning beep. The past had finally caught up, and time was running out. The sound of the heart monitor sliced through the silence like thunder. Ethan rushed to Amelia's bedside, his heart pounding harder than the rain outside. Her face was pale, fragile. The woman who once brought light into his dark world now looked like a fading photograph. Amelia, he whispered, clutching her trembling hand. Why didn't you tell me? Why did you disappear like that? Her eyes fluttered open, weak but filled with the same love he remembered. Because I knew you'd try to save me, Ethan, and I didn't want to be the reason you gave up your dreams. He shook his head, tears falling freely. Dreams, you were my dream. Everything I built, every success, every deal, it meant nothing without you. She smiled faintly, her voice soft. You became a billionaire, Ethan. You inspired millions. I didn't want you to see me like this, dying. I wanted you to remember me strong. Ethan pressed her hand to his lips. I would have chosen you over every fortune, every company, every title. The heart monitor beeped slowly. She coughed, her hand trembling as she reached into the drawer beside her bed. Inside was a small wooden box. Ethan, she whispered, this belongs to you. Inside lay a baby bracelet, tiny, engraved with the name Noah Cole. Ethan's throat closed. He's really mine. She nodded weakly. He knows you as the man I told him stories about, the man who builds kindness, not just companies. I wanted him to grow up proud of his father, his eyes flooded with tears. You kept me alive in his heart, even when you thought you'd never see me again. Amelia smiled faintly, but her eyes glistened. He asks about you every night. He says when he grows up he wants to be a CEO, just like his dad. Ethan laughed through the pain, brushing her hair gently. And then I'll make sure he becomes one, and he'll never feel the loneliness I felt. A quiet moment lingered between them, warm and heartbreaking. For a second, it felt like time had forgiven them both. Then the door burst open. Lila stood there, drenched, breathless, eyes wide in shock. "Ethan, you can't be here," the doctor said. Amelia turned weakly toward her sister. "Lila, it's okay. He knows." Lila covered her mouth, tears spilling out. "I just wanted to protect you both. I thought if he knew, he'd blame you for leaving." Ethan shook his head. "Blame her? She saved me from a life without meaning. Lila, you don't have to protect us anymore." Lila stepped closer, her voice trembling. "Then you need to hear the rest. And there's something else." Amelia's hand tightened around Ethan's. "Don't, Lila." Her sister hesitated, torn between her promise and the truth. "He deserves to know." Ethan's voice hardened. "Know what?" Lila's tears streamed down her cheeks. Amelia didn't just leave because she was sick. She left because she took the blame for something she didn't do. Ethan frowned. "What are you talking about?" Lila's hands shook. "The company's data leak, Ethan. The one that almost destroyed your reputation 3 years ago. It wasn't her fault. Someone else did it, but she took the blame. To protect you." Ethan froze, his heart pounding. "That's impossible." Everyone said Amelia leaked those files. Amelia's weak voice broke the silence. "It was my father, Ethan, your mentor. He did it. And when he begged me not to expose him, I disappeared. The truth hit like lightning." Ethan stepped back, shaking his head in disbelief. "Your father?" "Amelia, why didn't you tell me?" She looked at him with tearful eyes. "Because I knew you'd destroy everything for me. You'd lose the empire you built. And I couldn't let your kindness become your weakness." The heart monitor beeped faster. Amelia's breath grew shallow. Ethan grabbed her hand tighter, desperation flooding his voice. "Stay with me, Amelia. Please don't leave me again." She smiled weakly, whispering, "You found me." "That's enough." Then suddenly the monitor went flat. Lila screamed. Ethan's world collapsed. Doctors rushed in, alarms blaring. Ethan stood frozen, drenched in tears as they pulled him away. His billion-dollar world had never felt so powerless. And as the door closed behind him, a small voice echoed from the hallway, soft, innocent, and trembling. "Mom, is my dad here yet?" Ethan turned slowly, eyes wide. Standing there was Noah, and in that moment, time stopped once again. Ethan froze at the sound of that tiny voice. His chest tightened as he turned toward the doorway. And there he was, a little boy, no older than 6, stood clutching a worn teddy bear. His brown eyes, shimmered with confusion and hope. Behind him, the nurse hesitated, unsure what to do. For a long moment, Ethan couldn't breathe. He'd built skyscrapers, led billion-dollar meetings, faced boardrooms of ruthless rivals. But now, he couldn't even take a single step. "Are you?" The boy tilted his head, his voice trembling. "Are you my dad?" The world went silent. Ethan dropped to his knees, tears streaming freely. "Yeah," he whispered, his voice cracking. "Yeah, buddy. I'm your dad." The boy ran to him, throwing his tiny arms around Ethan's neck. Ethan held him tight, his heart breaking and healing all at once. Across the room, through the glass wall of the ICU, Amelia's still body lay surrounded by doctors. Machines beeped, nurses rushed, but her pulse remained faint. Ethan looked at Noah, his voice choked. "Your mom's just resting, okay? She's the bravest person I've ever known." Noah nodded, his small face pressed against Ethan's chest. "She always said you were a hero. She said you build things that help people." Ethan smiled through tears. "She's the real hero, Noah." Then, as if the universe couldn't bear the weight of that moment, the heart monitor inside Amelia's room let out a long, steady beep. Lila gasped. "No!" She ran in, begging the doctors to keep going. Ethan stood, trembling, watching from the doorway, his son's hand in his. Minutes passed like hours. The doctors worked tirelessly, but then the monitor steadied, a single weak beep returned. Then another. Ethan exhaled sharply, gripping Noah's hand tighter. Lila looked back, her voice trembling. "She's alive." Barely. Ethan walked in slowly, every step heavy with emotion. He sat beside Amelia again, holding her hand between his and Noah's. Her eyelids fluttered, her lips parted. "Ethan," he leaned close. I'm here. And Noah's here too. Amelia's weak smile appeared, soft, angelic. Her hand trembled as she touched Noah's cheek. My little man. Noah leaned in. Mom, please don't go. Tears rolled down Amelia's face. I'm not going anywhere, I promise. The family sat there, broken, healing, whole, surrounded by the quiet hum of machines. For a moment it felt like love itself had fought its way back to life, but then the door opened again. A man in a suit stepped inside, cold, stiff, familiar. Ethan recognized him instantly, Mr. Hart, Amelia and Lila's father. The man she'd protected all those years ago. He looked older now, guilt etched deep into his eyes. Ethan, I didn't expect to see you here. Ethan's voice hardened. You almost destroyed my company. You ruined her life, Mr. Hart sighed. I know, and I've lived with that guilt every day. But I came to tell you the truth before she... His voice cracked. Before she's gone. Ethan stepped forward, fury boiling beneath his grief. She's not gone. She's fighting because of what you did. Amelia stirred weakly, her voice faint but sharp. Dad, please stop. But he didn't. Ethan deserves to know everything. You weren't the only one I hurt. There's something you don't know. Something she never told you. Ethan clenched his fists. What are you talking about? Mr. Hart looked down, shame flooding his face. The files I leaked, they weren't meant to expose your company. They were meant to protect her. You were never the target. She was. Ethan's heart dropped. What? He continued, voice trembling. There were people after her, dangerous people she was investigating before you met. She took the blame to keep them away from you. Ethan stared at Amelia, his world spinning again. You risked everything for me. Amelia's eyes filled with tears. You were my whole world, Ethan. I couldn't let them destroy you. Noah gripped her hand tighter. Mom, please don't cry. Amelia smiled weakly. No, baby. These are happy tears. Ethan kissed her forehead, whispering, You saved me when I didn't deserve saving. And as he spoke, Amelia's hand loosened in his. Her breathing slowed, her eyes fluttered, and a peaceful stillness filled the room. No, Ethan whispered, shaking her hand. Amelia, please. The monitor fell silent again. Lila cried out. Noah screamed, Mom! Ethan pressed his forehead against her hand, sobbing. Please, not like this. Please don't take her away. Then just a faint breath. A flicker on the monitor. Everyone froze. Amelia's lips moved ever so slightly. Live, Ethan, for him. And the screen faded to white. Outside, the storm finally stopped. But inside Ethan Cole, a new one had just begun. 6 months later, the world had changed, not just for Ethan Cole, but for everyone who had loved Amelia Hart. The billionaire CEO, once known for boardrooms and luxury headlines, had become something else entirely. A man of purpose. The grand Malibu mansion that once echoed with silence was now alive with laughter. The sound of little feet racing through its halls, Noah's feet, every morning. Ethan made breakfast for him. Burnt pancakes, messy syrup, and laughter that melted the weight of years of loneliness. Lila often joined them, her quiet smile a bridge between grief and hope. Together, they built a new kind of family, one born not out of perfection, but forgiveness. The first few weeks after Amelia's passing were the hardest. Her funeral had been small, no media, no cameras, just the ocean and a circle of people who loved her. Ethan had stood beside Noah, clutching his son's hand as the waves crashed softly against the shore. He'd placed a single white rose on her casket and whispered, You'll never fade, Amelia. You built the best part of me. That night, he'd made a promise to live with kindness, to build not just companies, but lives, and he did. He rebranded Cole Technologies into the Amelia Foundation, a global non-profit supporting single mothers and heart patients. He poured billions into free medical care, educational programs, and small community grants, because Amelia had once said, Kindness is the only thing that grows when you give it away. The media called it the CEO's redemption. Ethan called it her legacy. Noah became his light. The boys' laughter filled every corner of the home that once felt like a museum of loss. Every night, Ethan tucked him in, telling stories of the woman who gave up everything for love. Sometimes Noah would smile sleepily and whisper, "Mom's watching, isn't she?" Ethan would nod, voice trembling. "Always, buddy, always." One rainy evening, as the fireplace crackled softly, Lila came into the study holding a small envelope. "This arrived at the foundation office," she said. Ethan took it, noticing the familiar handwriting, shaky, elegant. Amelia's. His chest tightened as he carefully unfolded the letter. "If you're reading this, Ethan, then I finally kept my promise. You found your way back to life. I always knew you would." Tears blurred his vision as he continued. "Don't live in the shadow of my goodbye. Let my love guide you forward. Take care of Noah, and remember, being a billionaire doesn't make you rich. Love does. You were always more than a CEO. You were the man who could turn pain into kindness." Ethan pressed the letter to his heart. "You still teach me, even from heaven," he whispered. Lila smiled softly. "She'd be proud of you." He looked at her, the sister who had carried guilt for so long, and said gently, "No, Lila, she'd be proud of us." Outside, the storm clouds cleared, revealing the kind of golden sunset Amelia always loved. Noah ran in, laughing, waving a paper airplane he'd made. "Dad, look. It flies just like you said." Ethan caught it midair, smiling. On its wings, written in crayon, were 3 words, "Love never ends." He knelt down, hugging his son tightly. "You're right, buddy. It never does." As they stood by the window, watching the sunlight paint the ocean gold, Lila placed a framed photo on the mantel, the 3 of them, with Amelia smiling in the background, and there, for the first time in years, peace finally returned to the house.